Broadcasting from the Unshackled studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's WilmsFront featured interview show on this Thursday the 6th of February 2025. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube channel, the WilmsFront Rumble channel and my WilmsFront X account. It is 7 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria. Tonight, my guest is one of the good doctors who stood up against the medical establishment during the COVID tyranny and the vaccine mandates, Dr. William Bay, because he called out and embarrassed the Chief Medical Officer of Australia, Paul Kelly, at the Australian Medical Association's National Conference in July 2022, was suspended by the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, which we'll just refer to as APRA. It's medical board. It's a government-controlled agency. So this meant that he was not legally allowed to have a role in healthcare for over 2 years until his total victory last December in the Queensland Supreme Court. Justice Thomas Bradley ruled APRA never had the power to suspend him, and its role does not include protection of government and regulatory agencies from political criticism. Despite his total victory, the medical establishment is continuing its campaign of vindictiveness against him, and the so-called anti-Cooker losers continue to make vexatious complaints against him. Dr. William Bay, welcome to WilmsFront.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on the show this evening, Tim.
Now, describe your medical career before you decided to question the COVID vaccines.
My medical career was one of infancy. I was a postgraduate doctor coming into the medical world with much experience in English teaching, sales, medical administration, and other things. And I had joined Monash University as a postgraduate medical student, meaning I only had to do 4 years to become a doctor. And right from the beginning, there were some issues and some conflict between the medical establishment and myself because they wanted me to take extra vaccines upon registration at medical school. But
so they wanted you to take them?
They wanted me to take them. And I must say I was surprised about that because during the process to apply to become a medical student, there was no requirements to do that, and there was no contract that I signed to inject myself with many different vaccines. So when they said that it was the expectation of the medical school to get X number of vaccines, I said, all right, well, I'm not going to have those. And I thought that would be the end of the matter because I thought we had freedom of choice and informed consent in this country, but the dean of the medical school wasn't too happy about my decision, and there was actually a lot of pressure placed on me to get those vaccines. There was even a meeting by the Council of Medical Deans across Australia right in the first week of my medical school.
All about you.
There is this morbid fascination with me because I was just not following the herd. I was questioning the science, questioning the rules. And I think that questions are valid, Tim. And yeah, they had this meeting about me. And thankfully, there were enough open-minded deans to not vote for my expulsion. And I remained a medical student of Monash University, completed my degree with honours, and went on to work in hospitals and to do locum work. I enrolled as a emergency medicine specialist in their training program. I did the general practitioner specialist training program as well. Did not complete either of those. I was on my way to completing the specialist training for general practitionership when APRA stepped in and suspended me unlawfully for speaking freely, like I'm doing now, because they're still coming after me, speaking freely about subjects that governments and regulators don't like doctors and people talking about. It really is just a matter of freedom of speech, and I like to speak freely, and I'm doing my best to defend that in Australia.
Did you have any complaints from patients that you treated? Because most would assume that a medical regulator, that's what they are there for.
Until this very day, I still have not had any patient complaints lodged against me with AHPRA, the medical regulator. You know, I'm a doctor that follows the rules so much that I reported myself, I think back in like 2018, that I thought maybe I'd done the wrong thing in one patient, and I reported myself for self-investigation by AHPRA, but that resulted in nothing. But yeah, I have a clean record. If anybody looks up my AHPRA registration on ahpra.gov.au, you'll see that there's no conditions, no undertakings, no reprimands, nothing. I'm clean as a whistle, and that's after a 2-year investigation by AHPRA. They audited all my practice. They couldn't find a thing. And why? Because I follow the rules, I do the right thing. I just happen to consider that doing the right thing was giving patients informed consent. Obviously, AHPRA does not agree with me, and that's why AHPRA has to be taken down, because they have demonstrated their commitment to the wrong type of ethics in this country, which is suppressing free speech, promoting big pharma products, and not allowing patients to hear about the risks of novel and experimental vaccines and other therapeutics.
Now, there were two phases of the COVID tyranny. There was the lockdowns, as we suffered the worst of it here in Victoria, and we were told that that was based on health advice that we couldn't see. Follow the science.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci is
Yeah.
the science, and there was also pressure put on doctors to not question the science of the 6 foot rule, 1.5, these arbitrary rules. Did you speak out at that stage? Was there pushback against you?
Yeah, it wasn't just the vaccines that I was unhappy with. I was unhappy with this entire repressive regime that was using all these techniques and methods of big government to suppress people's right to choose freely. I actually created an organization called Queensland People's Protest at qpp.life,
Yeah, I
LIFE.
can put that on the screen for our
Yeah.
viewers.
Yeah, we did at least 45 different protests around the country, including at the AMA. That was our 26th protest at the AMA National Conference in July of 2022, because we were doing our utmost best to protest the mandates, protest the lockdowns, protest the lack of informed consent, and promote freedom and democracy in this country. I'm very proud to have founded that organization. I'm very proud to have been involved in that organization. And I'm even more proud to have won in the Supreme Court to confirm once and for all those cowardly doctors out there, that it's okay to speak your political mind. We really need doctors to speak more. And at this moment, we need doctors and clinics to employ me, to support me, to allow me to work despite my somewhat controversial past and current situation. Because what's happened is that I recently had a job at Hamilton Island, but was essentially let go due to some complaints from vexatious people on the internet. They did their cancel culture thing, got me to lose my position. And that's just disgraceful in this day and age, that a doctor can be forced out, not by any patients, but by the opinions of some haters on Facebook.
Yeah, I've managed to infiltrate one of those Facebook groups, and even after all these years, they're still obsessed with you. They're probably watching this right now, rebroadcasting it,
Hello,
mocking
everyone again.
you, me, because they've got no life, and they've just all they've got to do is just follow. Even like, do they? I wonder if they still wear the masks when they're out and about and getting their boosters. Like, are they still so hardcore? Because there's still these. It's funny that the medical authorities never went after. Don't bother about still these. I call them the COVID crazies. Some of them are doctors and other medical professionals still spreading this, even though it seems that the medical establishment, they've got 2020 hindsight now, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, we did go too far here. Oh, yeah, there are vaccine side effects.
Yeah, I think that I'm very comfortable in my place in history. I'm going to go to my grave very relaxed that my legacy will be a good one. I do worry about my friends and colleagues in the medical industry that have committed perhaps the greatest atrocity, the greatest crime of the century on their patients, either wittingly or unwittingly. It disappoints me that still there are doctors still refusing to give the other side of the story when it comes to these mRNA technologies. And I loathe to call them vaccines because they're not really vaccines. They are gene therapies. That's even been admitted by Moderna. These are gene therapies. So we really are looking at the alteration of the entire genome for the human race. This is the biggest issue to have ever faced humanity. And that is why it is incumbent on all doctors and medical regulators to take this issue of mRNA technologies with the utmost caution, precautions, testing, rationality, and science to make sure that we're not altering our genome forever. But it just seems that the opposite is true, Tim. They've got the new factory opening up in Melbourne. There's hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts.
I think it's near
being
Monash
signed.
University, actually.
That is correct. And, they're even fast tracking the approvals for these mRNA technologies, not doing extra testing, but fast tracking these mRNA technologies. So it really concerns me about what's going to be happening to my grandchildren and my great grandchildren, even to my children, and then maybe even to myself, because these mRNA technologies are infiltrating the food supply, into the cows, into the beef supply.
Yes, the anti-fart drugs.
Anti-fart drugs. And yeah, it really disturbs me that there seems to be an anti-human agenda at play where anything to do with food and life is attacked, because carbon is the basis of all life on this planet. And I totally reject this idea that carbon dioxide is bad. I learned that carbon dioxide was good for plants. I still believe that. And I'm just so shocked and amazed that so many people can be convinced that we're ruining the world by there being a little bit extra of carbon dioxide for plants, which would only make these plants grow better and stronger and thicker and more fulsome, providing better yields and more food for everybody. So, at the end of the day, this seems to me to be an education problem, a marketing problem, a thinking problem. And really, that comes down to our schools. And our schools just aren't teaching our students to think critically. They are teaching them to follow political lines, political propaganda. But you know what? Maybe this age of AI and the internet will erase all these problems. Maybe students won't need to be told what to think anymore by their less than fully educated teachers. They can just go find the truth from shows like yourself, Tim. So even though there's a lot of bad things happening, I'm very optimistic for the future. I'm a big believer in Jesus and God, and I think he's got this whole thing planned out. I think this is a mass awakening that we're going through now. I think all the kids, all the young people are waking up to the nefarious agendas of the private corporations like BlackRock and the United Nations, the World Health Organization. We've got to start putting people first. And that's why I'm a big supporter, actually, of the People First Party led by Jared Rennick. I just decided today, a moment ago, actually, I announced on Twitter that I'll be putting my full support behind Jared for him to win his Senate seat in this upcoming federal election, because I believe he represents the best of what Australia has to offer, which is freedom, critical thinking, intelligence, and caring about people the most.
And he and Alex Antic were excellent in Senate estimates, grilling the Chief Medical Officer, Paul Kelly, and the head of the Therapeutic Goods Administration, Professor John Skerritt. In fact, I got a YouTube strike simply for a rebroadcasting, like just a part of it, when I can't remember if it was Jared Rennick or Alex Antic, questioning John Skerritt about a vaccine a COVID vaccine induced death of a little girl. And even though that happened in our parliament, that was taken down off YouTube. I nearly lost my channel. Like, I was simply just reporting what happened, or rebroadcasting what happened in parliament. Our health bureaucrats rightfully being questioned by our elected officials, yet that was taken down.
Yeah, those were terrible days, weren't they? The height of the lockdowns and the censorship, where you could, and you did just lose all the work that you put into different channels. I had my YouTube channel instantly deleted, as well as my Facebook page. More than 10,000 followers just gone instantly, and that was after I protested directly outside the Pfizer factory that's headquarters in Melbourne. Very next day, my page was gone.
When was that? Do we have a Pfizer factory here now?
Yeah, that's right. Back in October of 2022, I believe, also 23, I was down in Melbourne for one of the protests, and I went over to the Pfizer factory and did a impromptu protest live stream in front of that. And despite me criticising Paul Kelly and AHPRA and the Australian government and the vaccines continuously up until that point, it was actually my protest filming the actual Pfizer plant, the factory there in Melbourne. They got me completely banned. So that sort of showed me where the real power lay, and it was in the billions and billions of dollars that Pfizer had with contracts with governments like Australia to sell these mRNA technologies to us. And I think it's just disgusting that the government made these contracts in secret with these big companies, using our money and not letting us know about what our money is being spent on exactly. I think it's so arrogant, outrageous, corrupt, hypocritical, and dangerous. And that is why we should not trust our governments. We should always hold our politicians and the executive government to account. They should be our servants. The people should be the masters. And that is where we've gone wrong. We've let the authorities run away with power, and we've got to bring accountability back into this country again.
Was that in Melbourne's medical precinct, which it's called, around the University of Melbourne?
I'm not actually sure where the factory was.
Because the AstraZeneca vaccine was made by CSL at around that University of Melbourne medical precinct. That's where the Doherty Institute is based. Remember their computer modeling about how many cases that if we don't do this and that. And though there was also the Burnett Institute, they're based down further south near where the Alfred Hospital is. They were the absolute worst.
Yeah, during the protests in October against Dan Andrews and the lockdowns, a group of protesters said to me, "Hey, do you want to go to the Pfizer factory?" And I said, "Yep." And so I just hopped in the car with these other protesters. I just went wherever they took me. I'm from Queensland. I don't know exactly where we ended up, but we were outside the factory, and I blew my trumpet there, and we live streamed, and that was that. Yeah, that was great days of speaking truth to power.
And obviously what triggered AHPRA's, so they have different boards. So when it was a bit confusing when reading the news articles about you that talked about the Medical Board of Australia and AHPRA. So the medical board is, because AHPRA encompasses all health professionals, not just doctors.
That's right. Yeah, AHPRA is the administrative agency tasked with supporting administratively the work done by the different boards of Australia, whether it's the optometry board or the chiropractic board or the medical board. That's how AHPRA fits into things there. That's why I sued both of them, the Medical Board of Australia and the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, because in my opinion, as proved correct, they were both acting corruptly, both acting without due process and fair process, and both making baseless allegations against me regarding the policies and regulations that I'd allegedly broken. Justice Bradley finding that I'd broken no rules or laws, never had. And so it was just disgusting that they pursued me for so long. And, even in, I think it was October 2023, they made me an offer to pay them $35,000 if I would drop the case. That's how.
Although that, I guess, shows their arrogance, because what is it? They had an army of lawyers, and who pays for that?
Well, I think it's about 95% of their budget actually comes from doctors and nurses and optometrists, etc. Unfortunately, it is the health practitioners who are paying for their own corrupt regulation.
So, so as a health practitioner, you have to pay a fee to APRA.
Register. Yeah, that's right. So it's only a small element of their budget that is contributed by the taxpayer, and that's sort of one reason why they can get away with a lot, because they're not a federal government agency. They don't really need to appear before federal Senate estimate committees that necessarily. I mean, it's
They're
been
like a
great.
Quango.
Yes, they are a state government actually entity registered in Victoria, because the strange thing about APRA is they operate under laws that are state-based laws. They have this health practitioner regulation national law that exists in each state and territory around Australia. But the bad thing, or the strange thing, is that this law is supposed to be uniform, but it's actually different. They have different sections, different laws, different rules across the entire country, and yet APRA tries to administer it as if there was just one law. In my case, they couldn't even name the law that they were prosecuting me against. So it's just a S show right from the start to the end with this regulation of practitioners in this country. Regulation of practitioners always used to be state-based prior to 2010. We used to have state-based medical boards. Once they created this national APRA with its national boards, everything has broken down. The doctors are dissatisfied, the patients are dissatisfied. You have doctors practicing who are rapists, you have doctors practicing who are sexual molesters, but you don't have doctors like me practicing who criticized the government and the vaccines. So it's back to front, it's topsy-turvy, but I'm going to be working hard to reverse this situation back to normalcy. And I believe the way that can be achieved is through supporting people like People First and Jared Rennick, and supporting people like me. I'm going to keep fighting because APRA is still fighting me. They've got another complaint lodged against me for talking about ivermectin and the vaccines.
Even though the Supreme Court of Queensland said that it's not there to be to police political disagreements, the politics of health.
Yeah, they're really pushing their luck, aren't they? Look, I welcome their continued assault on me. If they wish to follow through on this and bring it to a legal proceeding, then I would be more than happy to double down and prove again that the rights of Australians to speak about political matters, including vaccine treatments, is an implied freedom as guaranteed by our Constitution. If APRA wants to lose again, go ahead. I just think that they need to learn from the past, get on with regulating practitioners who are actually dodgy, and leave people like me and Dr. Hobart and Dr. Trin alone, who just want to warn people about what we see as best. Look, I'm not right all the time. Dr. Trin's not right all the time, but you've got to allow people to speak. And there just seems to be this fashion across the world where governments are clamping down on free speech more and more. I believe today in the federal parliament, they passed another anti-free speech law.
Yes, absolute disgrace. It's,
yes.
I think, another day of great shame for this country.
Oh, it is so concerning, because what is hate speech? They've taken away the good faith defense. It means that if anybody is taking offense from anything that you or I say, even this interview now, right, we could be facing federal criminal prosecution, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's happened in Canada, England.
Yeah, what I noticed in that act is that it includes gender identity, which, and like we've had like Peter Dutton, I think it was just done with Peter Credlin before, saying, oh yeah, this is an important issue, the trans issue, but he just passed a law which, so like it's sold as, oh well, it's people threatening or inciting violence or force, but we know how these laws are often used and abused. And we've
Absolutely.
got a law that's going to be passed here in Victoria, even though the Victorian Liberals have opposed it, where it's 7 years jail for threats and incitement, including. Like, the reason that I'm focusing on gender identity is because, well, it is a contested part of medicine, though the Australian medical establishment, like the Australian Medical Association and the Royal Australasian College of General Practitioners, say the science is settled. And there's a Christian doctor, Jareth Cock, who is facing, he's been suspended for 2 years by APRA because he's posted on social media about abortion, gender dysphoria, and commentary expressing and encouraging views regarding LGBTQI people contrary to accepted medical practice and is or demeaning. And obviously there's laws, anti-conversion therapy laws that are in place in Victoria or in Queensland. The Christopher government has not said that they've said they're not going to repeal them yet. But like, this is another attempt to silence dissident medical professionals.
Absolutely. I do find it encouraging that the Christopher government in Queensland put a pause on gender hormone therapies for under 18s just recently. That's a fantastic development. It's a fantastic development because I believe that until people are adults, they don't have the legal capacity and awareness to make decisions that will change their life forever. And I was very impressed, very surprised to even see the Labor counterpart, Mark Butler, in the Federal Department of Health, put a review on gender.
Although that looks like it's going to be a whitewash stitch up, because they're going to consult with OzPath. So that's, I think that, a lot of people sort of got we're too thinking that it was going to be a good development when Mark Butler announced it. It was actually trying to sabotage the Queensland review.
Oh, was it really? Well, I'm pleased that you are up to speed with all the news, Tim. You seem very well educated on the subject, and that's fantastic. That's what we need, is journalists who know things, because a lot of people are just parroting information. So critical thought and research is what's going to get us out of this hole.
Yeah, sorry to be the bearer of disappointing news, but there's always this devil in the detail, whether it be legislation, whether these some of these reviews that are announced. And I've just learned to be very skeptical, because a lot of talk is cheap. And as I was saying before, that there's a lot of medical professionals who now have 20/20 hindsight vision. I'd be eager to hear your thoughts about Dr. Nick Coatsworth, former Deputy Chief Medical Officer, now apologising for his role, pushing vaccine mandates, admitting that they can cause harm in people. And he was, I remember he was in the Australian government's official vaccine ad in 2021, saying we're not safe until we're all safe. So what do you make of his contrition? Oh, I just lost you for a moment, but I think we're back.
Sorry, are you still there, Tim?
Yeah. You can hear me now?
Yes, yeah. So I heard you say, what do I make of Nick Coatsworth's about face Look, I think it's fantastic and absolutely necessary that every doctor and medical regulator make an about face. Yes, I understand people's concerns that these people who are for the wrong position are now trying to promote themselves as for the right position and that they shouldn't get away with it. However, I believe that the greatest teaching of Jesus Christ was forgiveness. I believe everybody should be forgiven. I believe the way to get people healed from vaccine injuries is to acknowledge that there's a problem, and people are not going to acknowledge problems if we come after them for acknowledging that there is a problem. I think that it's commendable that Nick has reversed course. We need more doctors to reverse course. At the same time, I still stand behind my earlier statement that we need accountability. So there still should be sanctions. There still should be discipline for those doctors who have failed to uphold the values of informed consent. And the longer those doctors take, perhaps the greater the punishment shall be. So thank you, Nick, for coming out. Please, other doctors, please come out as well. Join me, stand behind Nick, and together we will rebuild the trust in the medical profession together.
And there hasn't been such contrition from he's going to be retiring soon, the Commonwealth Chief Medical Officer, Paul Kelly, and now he's the interim director of the Australia's Centre for Disease Control. And was that you confronting him at the AMA conference in 2022? Was that the trigger, or were they already coming up circling you before you embarrassed him and the AMA?
Certainly that AMA protest was, the thing that I think definitely pulled the trigger on my suspension. It was very embarrassing for them, but hey, it wasn't me so much embarrassing the doctors. They really embarrassed themselves because to refute my claims about the negative efficacy of the vaccines, all any of those hundreds of doctors, including Professor Paul Kelly, had to do was say, William, you're wrong. You're a junior doctor. You don't have any evidence. You don't know what you're talking about. The vaccines are fantastic. But instead of doing that, you saw what happened. They tried to muffle my microphone, then they turned it off, and then they all got up and ran away. So, so their confidence in the vaccines was exposed for the whole world to see. That's what really embarrassed Professor Paul Kelly and the chair of the medical board, Dr. Anne Tonkin, is that their lack of confidence in themselves, their hypocrisy was exposed. It was the truth coming out that made them so angry and made them come after me so unfairly. And it was actually what won me the Supreme Court matter in the end, because they were so eager to get me. Dr. Anne Kelly, Professor Anne Tonkin discussed the complaint with Professor Julian Raitt at the conference, colluded to make a complaint against me. That information came out during the Supreme Court process and showed that my suspension had been colluded, interfered with, corrupted right from the very beginning. So, yes, Professor Paul Kelly was embarrassed on that day. Did that contribute to his resignation? I don't know, but I'll tell you, here's something that maybe you didn't know. He has also resigned from the CDC as well. He's no longer acting as the chair of that either.
And can I ask your opinion on because what is it? This I can't because there was there was the COVID. What is that? It wasn't really an inquiry or review by those three handpicked experts from their different fields.
Like Jane Holsworth.
There was the one from the medical community was this is the COVID review was Dr. Catherine Bennett. The names of the economist and the former public servant escape me. But it basically endorsed that, we need to get Australia's CDC up and running. So we're being told that this is great, that we're going to get this CDC
Oh, Tim, the amazing thing about this Australian CDC is that the results of the COVID inquiry was that they believe that there wasn't enough pushback on medical misinformation, that they weren't brave enough or honest enough to say they did the wrong thing by suppressing doctors' freedom of speech. They actually said we need to do more in the future. We need to clamp down on free speech even more. So this CDC is going to be another big threat to the autonomy of patients and health practitioners in this country. It's a real threat. It's the wrong way to go. We need to decentralize medicine in Australia, not centralize it. We need to give power back to the practitioners. And so, yeah, I'm quite concerned what this CDC is going to get up to. And I'll be quite interested to see where their funding is going to come from as well. Is it going to be the majority of funding from big pharma like the TGA gets its funding? I really hope not. Truly, the entire health system needs reforming, Tim, and I'm going to do my best to help with that.
So APRA suspended you without without a trial due process. They accepted the complaints, the confected complaints, and suspended you.
Well, they held what's called an immediate action committee meeting. They invited me to this meeting. I accepted the invitation. I engaged a lawyer at that time to represent me. I submitted my defense with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of medical references showing why the vaccines weren't as great as the government was telling the people. And then they said I wasn't allowed to attend this immediate action committee meeting. They said that I could only attend via live stream. So I attended via live stream, but I just happened to be standing outside the Brisbane office of the APRA building during that live stream. And so when Dr. Anne Tonkin, the chair of the medical board and the head of the immediate action committee, the same person who had colluded with Professor Julian Raitt to create that complaint in the first place, came onto the live stream to judge me for a complaint that she had created. She saw that there were 450 people standing behind me, all chanting for APRA's head. And she said to me that you cannot proceed with this meeting with all those people behind me. And she demanded that I stop live streaming. And I said to her, that's ridiculous. You know, you've requested this live streaming, not me. I wanted to attend in person. So if you have a problem with people standing behind me, that's your problem, not mine. Go ahead. She said, William, if you don't get rid of those people, as if I have power over 450 people, by the way, if you don't get rid of those people, we're going to kick you out of this meeting. And so I got the crowd to chant, kick him out, kick him out, kick him out. And then she kicked me out. And I was quite happy and confident for her to kick me out because I knew right from the beginning, APRA and the medical board never had the power to either kick me out or suspend me or deregister me because I'd done nothing wrong, because warning patients about medical risk is not only the right thing to do, it's the entire focus of medical ethics and being a doctor. And it was just disgusting and outrageous that Professor Anne Tonkin even tried to suspend me for that. And I'm so pleased that Justice Bradley agreed with me in December last year.
So does the suspension mean that, you can't even offer a medical diagnosis to anybody? Like, I'll give you an example. Like last year, I was really clumsy and fell down the stairs while I was looking at my phone. And I sprained my ankle really bad. If I went to you when you were suspended for a diagnosis, is that illegal? Would that have been illegal?
Well, APRA thinks they are so powerful that they issued a letter to me the very next day after my suspension on August 18, 2022, stating that not only was I not allowed to work as a doctor, but I was unable to work in any field to do with research, teaching, sales, advertising, paid or unpaid, anything to do whatsoever with anything that with any knowledge connected to healthcare. That's how far-reaching they thought their power went. So certainly the intimidation of APRA was there. If I had been found out to be providing diagnoses, yes. I'm sure APRA would have come after me and tried to deregister me on that. I mean, they're doing that right now.
Would they have the is it a like classified as a criminal offense? Could like they get
Yeah.
you arrested?
Yes, and this is not theoretical, my friend. This is actually happening to Dr. Piers down in Melbourne, where you live. She tried to do what you're suggesting, which was continue to help people despite being suspended as a doctor. And she is now going through criminal prosecution in the Magistrates Court and the County Court in Victoria for not being for acting like a doctor whilst not being registered with APRA. So she's facing a lot of time in jail. It's a very serious situation. Dr. Valerie Piers, look it up on Google, everybody. She deserves our support, and I hope she can win her case, because it's just so sad how the good doctors of Australia have been treated in this country. Dr. Miley Trin still fighting in March with the Healthcare Complaints Commission New South Wales. Dr. Mark Hobart still fighting down there in Victoria for giving COVID exemptions. The battle goes on, and when will it stop? I think only when APRA is completely brought down, which again is the policy of Jared Rennick, which is why I support him so much.
Yeah, this is this news.com.au article. So they took action against her for, well, as this news article says, dodgy COVID exemptions.
Yeah. And
so that was the trigger for it all.
How can there be a dodgy COVID exemption if a doctor thinks that their patient is worthy of an exemption? Who is APRA, bureaucrats in Melbourne, to say otherwise? Have they examined the patient? Have they checked the patient's medical history? Do they know anything about the patient whatsoever? No. So it is absolutely insane that there should be any doctor in trouble for writing vaccine exemptions. I mean, that's our job, is to make those assessments, right? They just didn't like the type of assessments that Dr. Piers and Dr. Hobart and myself, I gave exemptions as well. They didn't like the type of exemptions I was giving. It's just a shame that this whole issue was politicized so much. Let doctors be doctors. Get the politics out of medicine. Let's get people healthy again. I really hope RFK Jr. is confirmed by the Senate. I really hope we get the power back and make Australia and America healthy again.
Now, I'm a libertarian, so I'm against occupational licensing. So if, like, obviously, there would be a lot of people who would only want to see a doctor which is like has got APRA registration. But if like members of the freedom community, they should have been free to seek medical care from you during, even though you didn't have APRA accreditation. And now there's, here in Victoria, we have, what is it, professional occupational licensing for software engineers. So, yeah, just one example. So the fact that there is this cartel which develops, because, well, it's, as you've described it, so it's, APRA is sort of being created by all these state agencies, but it's not really accountable to anybody, but it is able to decree basically who gets to practice medicine based on their views. And
absolutely.
So, and of course, there's some who also believe that, like, I should need a license to practice journalism, that only you know, accredited journalists like should only be allowed to broadcast. So this is this is where, and like, we obviously COVID, the COVID tyranny exposed it, that through the government mandating occupational licensing, they can control an industry.
That's right. I think that the actions of APRA have shown the dangers of regulation. It has exposed the dangers of centralized control of industry, of professionals. If anything, it would have been better for patients to go to doctors who were not authorized and registered by APRA, because then you would know that they had the ability to speak freely, with truth being the absolute foundation of good medical practice. How can you trust your doctor if you know that they're lying to you? Which is what APRA required of the APRA registered doctors. So I'm very sympathetic to libertarian views. I'm very sympathetic to even non-licensing of doctors, because look how great the unlicensed journalists like yourselves, Michael from Cafe Locked Out,
Well,
etc.,
there's
have done.
no journalism licensing, but I'm just saying that there's
That,
people who think that there should be.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying look at how many great things have been achieved by the unlicensed journalists like yourself. Because you were free to do what you wanted, the truth has come out. But if you had to be subject to an APRA of journalism, you
Although
would have
there
been
was,
suppressed.
now that you mention it, there was sort of a journalist accreditation system during the lockdowns because
Ah, yes,
journalists were considered essential workers.
right.
And there was a discrimination against independent journalists trying to cover anti-lockdown protests, but there was there was none of the mainstream media. They could walk around without impunity.
Well, you know what? A license is just another word for a monopoly, right? It's just giving the power to the government to choose who's in, who's out, who has favor, who doesn't have favor, who gets money, who doesn't get power. That's not a free market. I believe in free markets. I believe that we should have a marketplace of ideas, and those best ideas should win out. And I think that the government has totally discredited this idea of registration, regulation, and licensing by showing how disadvantageous to patients licensing can be. We would have had much better health outcomes if APRA had gotten off everybody's backs. APRA should be ashamed of itself, and the national health law that regulates APRA needs to be completely reformed, if not rescinded, to allow doctors to have that decentralized power and autonomy once again. It's insane. It's so insane to think that bureaucrats can know what's best for patients across the country. A centralized, communistic, totalitarian, one size fits all approach to medicine just does not work. And that is why people are dying. It's ideology. It really comes down to philosophy, ideology. That's why I think libertarianism is very valuable and must play a role in Australia's future if we are to have a healthy country again. And let's get it done. We've got to get the power back to decentralized approaches again.
And as this Daily Mail article talked about, to make ends meet, you were delivering Uber Eats, which is not the great use of your to state the obvious, your medical training. I mean, obviously, well, you've got to be careful if you said like, oh, be careful of this food, it's a bit hot, so you don't burn yourself. Is that classified as medical advice? Like, could that get you into trouble? Like this, like the fact that they were basically like that was one of the few job opportunities you had. It proves my point that it would have been like in a libertarian system where there's not occupational licensing, you still would have been able to put your medical training and your expertise to use.
Yeah, Uber Eats driving was perhaps the only thing that I could do. I tried for hundreds of jobs, if not thousands, couldn't get anything. My name was blacklisted across the country because of what APRA did to me. Plus, I had that letter from APRA saying that I wasn't really allowed to work in any job anyway. I had to fight.
So any job at all? How could they say that?
Well, exactly. And finally, after two years of fighting about that, the judge put it to APRA, to their barrister, exactly what you just said. How can you justify that? And the barrister was like, yeah, I guess we can't. We withdraw the letter. Now that's great. I win on that issue, but that's 2.5 years later. from when I lost my job, and that's 2.5 years of intimidation. That's a letter that's gone out to hundreds of practitioners to intimidate them away from any work. That's why when doctors and they get suspended, you'll notice that they're not working in other healthcare related roles because of this compliance letter, as they call it. It's so intimidating, and it is illegal, and they just use the color of law to intimidate good doctors away from the health profession because they don't want anybody with a differing point of view working in the industry. And that's why I'm such a threat to them still, and that's why they're still coming after me now, is because I'm back in the industry, even though I'm finding it hard to get work, but I'm back in the industry and they cannot stand that. I am the thorn in their foot. They want that thorn removed, and they're doing everything possible to remove that thorn, but they're not going to win because the thorn is growing bigger and bigger, because doctors are waking up and realizing that the thorn is actually a rose that should be embraced. The truth is beautiful. Yes, it may be a little bit prickly at times, but that's okay. Sometimes the truth hurts a little bit. We've made mistakes with the vaccines. We've made mistakes the way we've regulated in this country. We need to improve. We must improve. We're going to improve. It just takes time, and I encourage everybody to keep up the fight politically, because that's where we're going to get change, is at the political level and at the court system level as well, Tim.
It does appear that APRA have a history of investigating, you could say, targeting Christian doctors. You're a Christian. Dr. Mark Hobart is a Christian. Who's still suspended, and I mentioned Dr. Jereth Cock before,
and Dr. Miley Trin, Christian as well. Yes.
So there does seem to be that this bias that they don't believe that Christian doctors can practice their version of medicine.
It does seem that way a little bit, doesn't it? One could allege religious discrimination. My plan is to sue APRA for a lot of money, for compensation to the damage to my professional reputation and my ability to get work, and for the loss of earnings, past, present, and future. And I hope to use some of those winnings to do more court cases where other people will be getting sued. So there needs to be reform in this country. And if it requires me to do 6 different lawsuits or get into politics, I'll do whatever the Lord leads me to doing, Tim, because this situation is not acceptable. And you know what? I enjoy it. A life with purpose is a great life. And if I was just sitting around making money, playing video games, it's just not as fulfilling as actually doing a good thing and helping people. So I really, even though it's cost me a lot, I really enjoy fighting for human rights. I really enjoy fighting for the rights of patients. It invigorates me. It makes me feel like a good person. I'm proud to be alive. I'm proud to be a doctor. I'm proud to help people. And that's why hopefully other people will join in this fight, because once you start getting there and having a go, it's so fantastic to fight for good. It's like being in a movie where you've got the enemy or the Nazis are coming after you and you're on the good side fighting back. It's life, mate, and I love it.
Because you won against their army of APRA lawyers, and the judgment from this Supreme Court Justice Thomas Bradley was that he basically ruled you were never suspended because it wasn't lawful. And so that is where it's in the judgment. You have a case for damages against APRA because you were never actually suspended.
That's right. And what is really annoying me at the moment is that the Royal Australian College of GPs, they kicked me out during this whole fiasco at the start of my suspension, not because of any patient complaints again, but purely because that I had been suspended by APRA. They said it's the rules. If you lose your license even temporarily, you must be expelled from the college. At the
what
time,
does that entail? Like, sort of, what do they like? They a lot of these sort of like groups, the AMA, the Royal College, they seem more like sort of lobby groups than, I guess, sort of representative bodies. Like, so what does it sort of mean to be?
Well, the RACGP is very meaningful because without my membership of that college, I cannot be considered a specialist, which means I cannot bill Medicare. And patients and practices like to bill Medicare because that's how
Also,
our health.
that's basically they have a monopoly over Medicare bulk billing.
They have, when it comes to general practice, yes. That there is another competing college called the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine. Now, I could apply to that college to get entry, but that would mean starting again and going through all the exams again. I may not get in, but I mean, I'm lawfully part of the RACGP already. I've already completed most of the training. In my legal opinion, I should be entitled to resume my training and my position, my membership of that college, because the court found, as you said, that my suspension was illegal from the beginning. And since the only reason they kicked me out was because of that illegal suspension, therefore, and logically, I must be reinstated immediately. What's annoying me is that they haven't said I'm wrong about that. They just are refusing to answer or acknowledge my legal letters. And so I'm going to have to sue them, it seems, because they are being just as obnoxious and arrogant as APRA was.
Yeah, and I didn't it's surely they, like, I know that they're like GPs, but surely they can also get some proper legal advice.
Yeah, the mind boggles what goes on behind closed doors. I'm sure politics is involved again. I'm sure there are certain elements of the RACGP board who do not want to see me succeed, so they're trying to cancel me. But I'm fighting. I'm going to fight back, and I'm going to win, just like I won before. So they can keep trying to suppress the good doctors of Australia, but we will win in the end because we have the power of truth, we have the power of medical ethics, and we have the power of God behind us. All they have is their immature, closed-minded, big pharma-centric attitude that they don't really care about the patients. And so that's why the public is behind me. That's why people love me. And that's why I'm going to win again, because we are right, they are wrong, and winners are grinners.
And your total court victory, it was inspiration to all of us, and it was one of the good news stories to finish off 2024. So thank you so much for coming on WilmsFront tonight. It's been great to speak with you, and I certainly hope that you can practice medicine, treat people who want to be treated by you in some form very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. God bless you. God bless Australia. And let's keep fighting, everyone. We will win.
Definitely. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you,
Doctor. All right, everybody, that brings us to the end of another WilmsFront featured interview program. So I will let you know when I've got my next guest lined up. Now, I am going to be doing a double shift tonight. I am going to be on Dave Right Now's Awakened Aussies stream at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so in approximately an hour. So we'll be discussing current events. So obviously, they're going to be commenting on more of the fallout of Thomas Sewell and Blair Cottrell appearing on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast. And the night after it aired, there was a mass suspension of National Socialist Network affiliated accounts on social media. So I'll be discussing that with Dave and the rest of his panel. So I will share in the live chat the link to the channel. So you can subscribe to Dave Right Now's channel, and so you can catch me again in an hour. So that's where you can see me next. And of course, the next Unshackled production will be Mondays, Tim's News Explosion, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time on the WilmsFront channel. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, comment below, and also share. And also, I cannot do all of these programs without your support. So please consider taking out a premium membership on the unshackled.net/membership. So I still use the website for our articles and also our Unshackler Awards, which we just had. So you can take out a bronze for $5 per month, silver $10 per month, $25 per month, platinum $50 per month, or bronze $50 per year, $100 per year, $250 per year for gold, and $500 a year for platinum. And then also over on Substack, where I send out email alerts for Unshackled Productions, and it's got the Unshackled Productions archive. I'll put the link into the live chat as well. So monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, founding member $500 per year, or you can subscribe for free, so you also get email notifications for all Unshackled productions. There'll be a new report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft later in the week. Also, my first Wilms report over on Reality Check Radio 2.0 aired on Wednesday morning. So that is when they officially launched RCR 2.0. So I discussed obviously the news about the Queensland government's review and halt of puberty blockers. The good news that John Pesciuto had lost the Victorian Liberal leadership over Christmas, and of course the latest on, well, the investigation into where all of these anti-Semitic attacks are being, well, basically they're being funded by somebody. That's what our police are telling us. So this is the new RCR 2.0 website. So it's got a new URL. So it's rcr.media. So I hope to see you all over on Dave Right Now in an hour's time. Awakened Aussies. I'll also repost it on my socials as well. So thank you for watching tonight. I hope you took inspiration from Dr. William Bay's story, and I'll bring you more, well, stories of hope and inspiration on WilmsFront very soon. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com to view the archive of episodes, and keep visiting the unshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.